So thank you guys. Thanks for attending for today's session. So yesterday we just have a quick overview what we have discussed, and also today I'm going to show what kind of concept we are going to discuss as well. Yesterday we have seen how to what is the introduction to S4HANA. So how SAP evolved from basic ERP systems to S4HANA, and what is the transition, how the transition happened, right? So from 1917 to 2015, how the evolution happened, and from 2015, what are the versions, or in the programming perspective also as an ABAP, or what kind of developments or what kind of technologies we are introduced. We learned the difference between on-premise, S4HANA cloud. So please keep in mind that we are dealing with ABAP RESTful programming model, which is as a platform is available on SAP Cloud Platform. So that is something, a new technology given by SAP. So using the technology, as a customer, he can choose to have a separate development environment for his applications. It's not along with the on-premise if he is on S4HANA Cloud as well. Okay, that is kind of a separate environment. So we discussed about that. We haven't discussed about ABAP RESTful programming development flow. So this is the main intention of this course. Just by looking at this diagram, you will see the entire objects or the concept that we are going to discuss as part of this course. And we have seen SAP HANA overview. Why we have seen SAP HANA overview? Because ultimately we are developing apps on top of it. So that is the tech we need to understand basically, right? So if I do not discuss these topics, as a developer, it will not make any difference. But if you are attending for interviews, or when you are taking a higher positions, this kind of stuff will be very useful for you too, because you know the underlying architecture, what is happening, and you are able to, evaluate the requirements as per the architecture that is there, and you can propose solutions like that. So that's the reason we went to these kind of topics as well. So we see today what we are going to discuss. We know why serious views are introduced. So we will know why serious views are introduced. So this is where we have to understand the basics also, because just like how ABAP is so important for an ABAP developer back in the old days, serious views are pretty much more than important now because of the new paradigm change in the way we develop applications, right? So serious views are fundamentally required. Very good understanding serious views is required for us. For ABAP RESTful programming model also, this is compulsory. We should have a background of serious views. That's the reason we have included this one. So some people, they not even introduce serious view. They directly jump into creating directly application related serious views just by joining the different tables, okay, or views. So we understand why serious views introduced, what exactly a difference it makes from a normal select queries and using the serious views, and what kind of approach we follow, whether it is top-down approach or bottom approach. And finally, what is the responsibility as a developer that you have to do. Okay. Once we understand the theoretical part and we see what is exactly core to data paradigm, I'll explain very clearly with diagrams. Okay. And then we move on to the second session, which is basics of serious views, where we start, logging into our cloud account in Eclipse, and we create a package there, and we start a very simple serious views. So today, do not expect complicated examples from today onwards, because we just cover very basic. When you understand this, then we second week that the level will be increasing day, week by week. It's not suddenly will not increase. So I will take it very slowly to advanced topics. Okay. So please pay attention. Do not neglect that these are the basics and that you do not have to concentrate. Okay, these are very important. Okay, so let's start with why serious views, and then we'll see what are the development approaches we need to perform as a developer. What are the roles and all. Okay. So these are slides that which I have prepared. You will not find anywhere. Please keep in mind that. I mean, you will find in only paragraphs or sentences and others. You not get this kind of visualization for the concepts that I am going to cover. Okay, I see this window often. Even I'm not able to minimize this. Okay. So the goal of any SAP new technology right? The goal of any SAP new technology is to improve two things. If you take anything, any new technology that is introduced by SAP, the goal is to happy the client. That is obviously. So how do they make the happy client happy? First one, they have to improve the data latency. Second thing is a better user experience, right? So these are the ultimate goals. Whether you introduce SAP HANA or BW, BWA, BW on HANA, anything that is relevant to improving the data latency. What exactly that means? The more quickly they're able to process the data, the higher the value of the product, right? So that is the kind of direction SAP is heading with any new technology that is introduced. Second one is also an important one, the better user experience, correct? So you cannot just ship a super fast product and just give a terrible user interface, right? So user interface is very much important to make the customer happy as well. So these are the two things that they have to take care. So in order to improve these two things, so what SAP has done in 2011 and 13, it has introduced SAP HANA. You can imagine before 2011 they used to have relational database management which are not in-memory database. Okay, SAP is an in-memory database. So relation database, the data will be stored in traditional hard disks, okay, whereas in memory it will be completely rely on the memory. So keeping this point, I am going to ask a question at the end of the first session, and I just want to see if you have done any research on SAP HANA. So I'll ask one question, anyone can try to answer related to SAP HANA. Okay, so what is in memory and relation database? I have a question for you. Now in SAP, so these are the two things. One which will concentrate on performance aspect. Other one is to improve the better user experience. Okay, so SAP has taken a big step forward to achieve its goal. So what is it for ABAP developers? So what is it has to do with the ABAP developers with these two? So we have to use of both the technologies which is SAP HANA and Fiori when developing apps for S4 HANA. So ultimately you're going to develop applications for S4 HANA as a developer. Okay, so we have to make use of these two combinations. So SAP HANA plus Fiori, we are going to leverage both of these two concepts. So then you will be called as S4 HANA consultant, right? So this is what an S4 HANA consultant should know. He has to have a good understanding of SAP HANA with, that is nothing but ABAP and HANA, so where he can interact with SAP HANA from ABAP with CDS views, AMDPs, whatever it is. So that is one part, and also developing applications with ABAP RESTful programming model or ABAP programming model for Fiori as well. If you know UI5, that even increase your chances, right, as an S4 HANA consultant. So from ABAP developer, so our step is to first cover through what are the technologies available for us to create a Fiori applications, right? So that we can cover, you will get good understanding of Fiori as well if you want to move in that direction. So we already know SAP Business Suite ECC 6.0, how the architecture is. We have client, application server, ABAP, and also we have a database here. So it could be anything, right, for SAP Business Suite ECC, and the application server is ABAP. Okay. So when you write any query, let's say I'm writing a query, select MATNR, MATKL. So this is an open SQL, right? So it's not specific to any database. We already know this. When you write this, how any database is able to understand this, right? So let's suppose I have a Oracle database and I'm writing in an open SQL. For the Oracle to understand the language, it has to written in SQL language, right? Not in open SQL. We have to written in that specific database language, right? MS SQL also is another language and all. But how is it is able to convert this open SQL, which is executed on any platform, any database? Because of this open SQL, there is a concept called DB interface, which actually takes care of converting this open SQL statement into native SQL. That means irrespective of what are the database, based on the database, suppose if Oracle is there, this select query will be converted into the query which can be understood by Oracle. Right? You're getting my point? So this is how the DB interface works. Then it will convert into a native SQL, and that will be executed on top of my database. So you'll know why so you'll get to know why I'm explaining this one. So this is important in understanding code to data paradigm. So if you look at SAP Business Suite for S/4HANA, just a second. So we have a different architecture. So architecture is the same, still R/3. There is no difference, but the user interface, the way user interacts with it, will change. Mostly that would be, Fiori, and the database is purely HANA, right? This we already know. So always it will comes with the latest version of ABAP platform. So I think currently it is around 7.54, I believe, 5.4 or 5.6 in the latest versions for ABAP. So you might be working on 7.51 or 5.2 right now. I think we are ahead of 5.7, 5.8 also, I believe. Okay. So we have this client, application server, database server. So how it actually happens here? So in order to interact with your SAP HANA database, you can do it in 3 ways as an ABAP developer. So if you are developing applications for S/4HANA, do not just go for module programming. Okay, so try to create a Fiori application. By using CDS views or data services in CDS views, and try to use the latest syntaxes like enhanced OpenSQL, where you can include case statements or do some calculations in the query itself, right? So AMDPs, you write the query in SQL script, not in ABAP language. You write in SQL script that is directly executed on HANA DB. So as I mentioned, our goal is to leverage SAP HANA technology. So how do we leverage? Using CDS views and all, right? So that is the main important thing. So since it is a database, if you consider ECC 6.0, since it is any database, it is directly converted into native SQL, so into the relevant formats. If you observe here, we do not have AMDPs here. So you cannot write SQL, Oracle related DB language directly in my ABAP application server, right? So we have concept called procedures in Oracle, so which is something we cannot write in OpenSQL. But wherein HANA DB, we can leverage, or you can use procedures by creating AMDPs in ABAP application servers. Okay, so when you write all this, in order to interact with purely directly, if you want to interact, so you have to write native SQL. That means you have to learn SQL script, you have to learn HANA views, you have to learn HANA store procedures. Suppose if you are developing, for your client is implementing their business on SAP HANA for the first time, so they do not have any previous ABAP application server or anything. Okay, they wanted to have a greenfield implementation. So if they chose to just they stick to SAP HANA, if they chose to okay, we always develop Fiori applications, and we do not want ABAP server, we do not have any previous business, we don't have any data. So can we do everything on SAP HANA itself, like creating applications, storing the data and everything? They can still do. They need to hire SAP HANA developers for that. Okay, so they have to write native SQL, HANA views, they should know everything. So access OData services are there, to generate services on top of HANA views and all. So they do not have ABAP server. So for the people, there are 75 or 80%, more than 85% of the business right now, or the clients right now, already having ABAP application server, right? So then they cannot throw away everything and just they take only SAP HANA as their platform, right? They have already huge amount of business data, or the business logic that they have written for the years is still there. So why to throw away this? So that's why ABAP HANA come into the picture. So they have introduced CDS views, AMDPs, and OpenSQLs for ABAP developers, so that they don't have to switch to SAP HANA new concepts, right? So they can create this enhanced OpenSQL, and the DB interface will take care of converting into native SQL. And CDS view will be converted into HANA views on top of, and AMDPs will be converted into HANA stored procedures. Okay, hope you are getting my point. So instead of you learning native SQL, HANA views and all, they introduce new topics, CDS views, AMDPs, which are quite similar to your ABAP language. So then from there you can create your objects related to SAP HANA, and DB interface will take care of converting into their native objects. Okay, so you don't have to do anything. So that is how we can leverage SAP HANA by creating CDS views and AMDPs. So this is just a small part. Okay, why we have to develop CDS views and all? Because we have to interact with the HANA database. HANA database, there is a concept called HANA views, and if you can implement that in your ABAP via CDS views, that will be converted to HANA views. Okay, so every time you create the CDS view and activate, there will be HANA view created in the database. Okay, as simple as that. Every time you create AMDP and activate, and when you run for the first time, HANA stored procedure will be created. Okay, did you observe the difference? I said CDS view, when you create and activate, there will be a HANA view, but AMDP, when you create and activate and run for the first time, a stored procedure will be created. Run for the first time, then only it will be created in the HANA database. Okay, so this is why CDS views are important to interact with SAP HANA, to leverage the capabilities of SAP HANA concepts. So what's in it first? So SAP HANA systems use HANA as its native database to store the data. So one of the best features of SAP HANA is in-memory, right? So we already know this. So in-memory computing. So the storage information in main memory rather than on slow hard disk, so helps the companies to analyze the data on a main memory in a matter of seconds or minutes instead of waiting for long hours. So to get the best out of it, so in-memory computing as an ABAP developer, you need to take care of two things. Avoid moving unnecessary large volume data to application server. So this is all about code to data paradigm. Okay. Avoid moving unnecessary large volume data into application servers. I'll show you a simple example what exactly I mean. So perform data intensive calculations at database level. Okay, so by these two statements, what exactly it is conveying is try to do maximum at the database level itself. And if you ask me why I should do it, because SAP HANA is powerful. Okay, then why it is powerful? So it's never any question. This keeps on going. Why it is powerful? Because it is in-memory capabilities. Why it can perform calculations faster? Because it stores in a column store. How column store works? So see, that is where it is going. Yesterday, that's why we have discussed all these concepts. Okay, so avoid moving unnecessary large volume data in application server. Perform data intensive calculations at the database level. So that is why yesterday we know SAP HANA powerful. So why can't we leverage it? Okay, so do everything as much as possible at the database level itself. Okay, so how to achieve this? So first one is data to code. So before SAP HANA, so we should know how we used to do before SAP HANA, and let's see how we can do it with SAP HANA. So I'm eliminating the user interface here, user client. I just wanted to see application server at ABAP and database how it is performing, works. So this is the old system that used to work before SAP HANA. So we have NEDB application server. So what we used to do, we used to bring huge amount of data from the database into the application server. Then we process the data. What exactly I mean is, you bring huge amount of data into your internal tables, right? So, which can be iTab 1, 2, 3, whatever it is. So some internal tables you bring that data with your select queries by applying some conditions and all. And then you loop over those tables. There could be a number of loops. You loop over them and you calculate the information. Finally, you prepare one final internal table with your output. Exactly right. So we are transferring huge amount of data and putting everything in the application server. Application server is not an in-memory. Application server do not have, this kind of stuff that are implemented in SAP HANA, right? So our, what do you call, all the power is within SAP HANA. So why to do everything in application server when you have a powerful weapon? Okay, so you just do it at the database level only. So that is what we need to do. So here we are bringing everything into the application server. You see from here it is keep on increasing. Okay, so we are putting this application server on load, and data intensive logic is getting executed here. So this is called data to code. Okay. Now we have application server ABAP and the database. So if you observe, it is completely SAP HANA. Now how do we do it? Whatever you create, right, CDS views and application server, AMDPs, enhanced open SQLs, that will convert it and sit in SAP HANA, right? So everything that you create, CDS views, expressions, SQLs, whatever it is, that will sit in SAP HANA. So I kept this here because when you run from ABAP application server, this is where it will get executed in SAP HANA and whatever it is. So you will transfer the minimum data. So using CDS views, you will write, suppose there are any calculation in the CDS view itself, you will write AMDPs, which is SQL script. You can perform data intensive logic within that also. You can execute that in SAP HANA database. So you can perform all the calculations and the looping and everything within the query as much as possible if you can do it. And then everything will happen there, and minimum amount of data will come to your application server, right? So you just have to remember, okay, so this big fat arrow you have to reduce into like this. So you have to transfer minimum amount of data, okay? So everything data intensive logic happens at the database because it is powerful in application server, and it will transfer the minimum amount of data. Okay, hope you, and I'll take questions in 10 minutes. Please bear with me. So these are very important in terms of your interview perspective also. What is code to data paradigm and all. Okay. So what is the approach you need to follow? So suppose you want to do code to data. Okay, you have decided this is the way I want to go. You will eliminate data to code. So this is what you need to do. Do not bring everything into application server and do not perform the logic. So always go for code to data. Okay. So then you decide, okay, I'll go for code to data. What is the approach I need to follow? Because why I'm discussing this is, so there are two concepts that there's a bottom approach and top down approach. So bottom up approach, is the application server is 7.40 SP02 and above. Okay, and top down approach after SP05. So there is a system I personally came across, this S7.4 SP02, where I cannot directly create all this stuff. Okay, I'll show you the difference. How we used to create. What is the approach we used to follow to interact with SAP HANA, and in top-down approach, what is the approach we need to? This is currently going on. Okay, top-down approach is the main one. Okay, 99% of the people will use top-down approach. Okay, so bottom-up approach is nothing but back in those old days. So when you have SAP HANA, right, we used to, when SAP HANA introduced newly to ABAP application server, that is business suite on HANA, right, just a HANA database, there is nothing but ERP still the same. For that suite, we have SAP HANA and ABAP application server. So as means application server ABAP. So in order to interact with SAP HANA as an ABAP developer, you had to create HANA views. So imagine you being a developer at that time, you had to learn HANA views. Okay, and then when you create the HANA view, you are going to expose this to external views. Okay, so at that time I have seen people creating HANA views and exposing them as external views. That will be another dictionary view. That means two objects you are supposed to create for one single purpose, right? Story do not end there. So if you want to create HANA procedures, if you want to have a requirement that where you need to create HANA procedure, you create a HANA procedure, you learn SQL script and you create a HANA procedure, and that will be exposed as a procedure proxy. So another object you need to develop based on this HANA procedure. So that means you have 4 objects for a single requirement. And then there will be a delivery unit just like our TR in SAP HANA, which can hold these HANA views and procedures. And then there will be HANA transport container. Okay, so you have to move above 3 objects and the below 3 objects. If any one of them is missing, it will cause a lot of trouble. Okay, it was very horrible to for a developer to do all these things. So who will create double objects for each and every thing that you have to create, right? So this is a bottom approach. It was a little painful, a lot painful, not little. So there are people who conducted courses on ABAP and HANA. They have included this only. They were not discussing about this top-down approach during those days. Now, so good folks in SAP realized this pain and they have created this approach, like top-down approach. Okay, they have come up with top-down approach. So all you have to do is you just create a CDS view. Do not go to the SAP HANA, right? So on the left hand side, I had to log in as a SAP HANA user, as a developer user, and create HANA views and go to, I have to generate these external views and all. So here we do not have to log in to SAP HANA as a user, a developer user. You just log into your application server, create your CDS views, and when you activate it, it will be directly deployed as a HANA view in SAP HANA. Okay, so when you create an AMDP, it will directly deploy a HANA procedure. And good part is you do not have a separate two containers which needs to be transported to your quality or production systems. There will be only one standard ABAP transport, just like how we do it. You log those objects in a TR, you just simply move it. When these objects move to the application server, when you activate them there, then in the quality also these objects will be deployed. Okay, so this is very simple. So what is the thumb rule here? We always have to do top-down approach. So this is absolute. We cannot use the bottom approach. This is absolute. Okay, so top-down approach we can use. Still we can use it, but that is a a painful task. You do not have to do it. So this is where ABAP developer job become easy. So you just have to create CDS views, AMDPs, and that will be deployed without your notice. Okay. So for you, if you are having any confusion, so just have a look at this chart. So when to follow what is. So what is the release for greater than 7.40 for support package 05? You can leverage this code push down techniques, enhanced OpenSQL CDS views AMDPs. Below, as just I said, unfortunately, if any one of you are unlucky or working on this system, you have to go with bottom-up approach only. So below 7.4 SPs, below 7.4. So in order to interact with, that is even painful. In order to interact with SAP HANA, we used to create HANA views and database procedures can be consumed using native and ADBC concept. That is even painful. Okay, so how do we do native SQL? How do we write native SQL in ABAP? Can anyone give a guess? Can anyone tell me how do we write native SQL in ABAP? Suppose I usually we write ABAP OpenSQL, right?
Using the used to be ABAP connectivity, or like execute immediate function.
Yes, there are two ways. ADBC we can use, and there is a Mansi has given in the chat execute and execute statement we have to use. Between that we write native SQLs. That's a good answer. Yeah, ADBC is also one concept. So before ADBC we used to do execute and execute. That is even painful. You do not get even syntax errors or anything, no feedback. But with ADBC you get syntax errors. If there are any errors you get, you are able to manage the exceptions and also. That is a very old story, just for information. Some of you say there is a in the screen I see there some strip. I'm not able to minimize this one. Trying to see, it's still appearing. Okay, so this is what we need to do. Just let me go back to the just another question for anyone. You can ping in the chat. Like, how many of you, got into a question like why series views when we have dictionary views? Anyone had that doubt? Why do we need to create series views when? What is the difference between a normal view and series view?
Hello? Hi,
Okay, if anyone having that question,
can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so the main difference is like if you are writing an advanced view, you cannot do it in native one. That's why you need to write the serious view. For example, union. So those kind of things you need to use the serious.
Correct. I'll explain more points why series views are far better than views in these slides. That's why I asked this question. Okay, so I'll just simply go through the slide. And before that, any questions so far, whatever we discussed? Anyone?
So what is the main advantage of the top to bottom approach?
So you can clearly see here, right? So bottom up approach, everything. Can you go on mute, please? Yeah, thank you. Bottom up approach, you had to learn HANA views, HANA procedures. That is one thing you had to learn, and you create on top of the HANA, and then again you have to expose this to external views, procedures, and all. So you do not have to do anything in this top-down approach. Okay, you just create series view and AMDP. Automatically the objects will be deployed into SAP HANA. Here we have to do it manually. Okay, so and also there won't be any two double object slide like this. We'll have only series views and AMDPs. These views also will be there, but we do not have to take care of locking them into transport container just like this. Here we just lock it just like how we do it in our ABAP, right? So you just lock it in your TR, you just directly transport. Here there is a lifecycle problem, like lifecycle of the objects. When you miss any of this, whether HANA objects or ABAP objects, it will be very tedious task to perform the transport again. So lifecycle management easy as well in top-down approach. Hope that answers the question. Next one, please. Yeah.
So the RESTful, if somebody is on the SAP business suite HANA and not S4 HANA, and they are like greater than 7.4 or 5, so they still can use RESTful programming what we are going through. It's not only just cloud and S4 HANA, but if they have recommended version like greater than 7.5, so they can still use this new function. Is it right?
No.
Yes.
So 1909, from 1909 only you can do ABAP RESTful programming.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions, please?
And I'm not really
This
aware
is
of
a
external
this is a
views.
general this is a general question. So see, my project is like brownfield. I moved all my project into the S4 HANA. So whatever the code existing before, does it work in the S4 HANA or do we need to do anything? And like all the data will be stored in the BKPF and BSEC data, and those tables are not exist in the S4 HANA. So what about the data which already existing in those tables, and what about the code already is migrated in the S4 HANA? So how can we do that?
See, basically, before we actually migrated to S4 HANA, right? So for suppose you are into ECC system. So there is a tool that will be, there is a Fiori app, code inspector, not related to code inspector check. That app, what exactly it will do is it will analyze the code, right? Suppose if I am migrating to a S4 HANA system, then that app will do analyze entire the code or whatever the things that I need to take care. So that will give you a dashboard. So what is the code that you need to take care? What kind of precautions you need to take care before you are moving to the database? What are the tables that you need to take care? If there are any queries that you have to change, if there are queries that you have to improve, all the list that will come to you. So you can take actions accordingly. Just for your question also, basic tables, that information will be given there, how you need to take care of that. So that will be taken care that as an activity for our developers, they have to take care of this. So they will get a kind of a dashboard, what kind of actions they need to perform.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Someone asking a question, they got interrupted. What is?
Hi, this is funny. Actually, I'm not aware of this external views and processor views. And what's the difference between these views, like CDS views and external views?
Okay, so external views series is nothing but a direct HANA view. So let's say if I create a HANA view, so HANA view is nothing but it's like a create view, view name, what are the fields that you want exposed from the query. Okay, it's just a query on a table in SAP HANA. So what we used to do is we create an external view. That means that is a different ABAP object. It still works as a HANA view. When you execute that external view, that still give you the same result. Just to access in ABAP, that has to be exposed as an external view. So do not worry if you are not able to do it. That
Okay.
is the concept. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a normal view. Yeah. Okay then. So I'll go to the next slide. So we take the further questions later. Thanks you. Let me go to the lecture mode. So if I have to say what is CDSU in simple terms, stands for Core Data Service. So available from as above 7.4, support package 05. So main advantage to leverage features of SAP HANA. So whatever we discussed, I'm just listing down so that you can read it. So CDSU is open. That means that you can use it all database platforms supported by SAP. And can we use CDSUs on Oracle? Can anyone ping in the chat? Can we use CDSUs in Oracle? Manoj says yes. Nilesh says no. Okay. Vaidya says no. Karthik is recommended. HANA is recommended. Yes. Ram, yes. Okay. So I get mixed answers. So S is the answer. Yes, we can still write CDSUs in SQL, but we will not get the same performance as in SAP HANA, because SAP HANA is in memory, whereas Oracle is relation database, right? But still we can do in Oracle as well. Now, why we can do it? Because when future, it's not that customer is going to stay all the way to Oracle, right? So he can switch to HANA. Okay, still those CDS views will be executed, and another reason is CDS view will always convert to a native SQL, right? So when you write a CDS view, that will be converted into SQL statement that could be understood by the Oracle DB as well. So I'll show that well. And can we write AMDP in Oracle? Mansi says no. Yeah, most of the people say no. Yes, that's correct. We cannot write AMDP because AMDP only supports on SAP HANA. We can write AMDP with SQL script. We cannot use OpenSQL. You have to learn SQL script in order to write AMDP. Okay, this is just for the questions I'm asking. So I know they are quite far away for ABAP RESTful programming model, but we need to understand the CDS views, how it works. So why can't I just use the database views which are available in data dictionary S11? So database views are very plain, so cannot perform application specific logic on the go within the view. That means when you write a view in when you create a view in SE11, you cannot write some calculations there, right? So that we cannot do. Sorry. So multiple steps involve exposing view as a OData service. So still we can use as part of OData service our SE11, because you can write a query on SE11 that could be included in your OData method to make as an OData service. But that multiple steps involved. You have to create a project, a CGW, whatever. If you want to expose a single CDS views, you just have to use a single annotation, OData published true. That will become an OData service. So it's that easy. So no support for annotations. So it is also one of the important things. So we cannot add annotations. Still we can do it. That requires a code changes in your MPC-XD class of OData framework. Okay, if you are familiar with it, you will understand. But do not worry. I'm just giving this all for your information. Could be helpful in your interview questions. So I'll just give a quick chart so you'll easily understand. Can we do calculation at field level? Yes. Here we can't do. Supports a right auto join? Yes. Here it doesn't support. Annotations? Yes, we can do it. Here we can't. Exposing OData is simple? No. Supports all databases? Yes, both of them will support all databases. Support SQL functions at field level? Here we cannot do. So suppose if I want to calculate the difference between a date, I can use a SQL function directly in the query. Instead of bringing that into internal table and looping over it and converting the difference, I can directly do it in this query itself. Okay. So this is a simple comparison with the view and CDS views. So you will be getting this PPT. Okay, so you can have a look and you can have a look for your interviews as well. So finally, what is the conclusion for this from this presentation? So working with SAP HANA for data modeling and code push down, and we use enhanced OpenSQL, CDS views, AMDPs also. You can use queries also we use. Okay. So we create CDS views. I also give an example on AMDP, how to use AMDP within your queries in ABAP RESTful programming. So that is something you haven't seen anywhere. And how to create the Fiori app. So you learn ABAP RESTful programming model and you work with Fiori elements. Okay, so there is two ways we can develop Fiori application. One, Fiori elements, and a freestyle application. Okay, Fiori elements, you just have to know about annotations, CDS views, and freestyle application you have to learn JavaScript and all. Okay, so here whatever the application that we're going to create is via Fiori elements. And if you learn, there are I think 5 to 6 kinds of Fiori elements app we can create. If you learn at least 2 of them, you will be able to do it remaining templates with ease. Okay, so no JavaScript is required. If you have a JavaScript knowledge, that is well and good, but for you to create Fiori applications using ABAP from ABAP side with this ABAP RESTful programming model, you do not have to learn JavaScript. So we discussed everything. So where exactly we need to do it? Everything we have to do it in Eclipse. So from Eclipse we create CDS views, we create services, we expose them, we can test them in the Eclipse. There are a lot of features are there, and we can also manage the code with ABAP and Gate. We can transport the code to cloud, from cloud to on-premise, via everything we can do from Eclipse. Okay. So our development environment will be Eclipse. So in job description they are mentioning well familiar with Eclipse development. You can see that as well. So we'll take a small break. So in the next session that is going to be also a small one, not small one, it may be half an hour, 40 minutes. And then I will start with serious view creations. We'll have a look at the Eclipse, what are the features are there, what kind of options you have. I'll discuss some shortcuts, and we create some serious views. Okay, the next session. And let's take a break for 10 minutes. I'll be back here if 8:17. We'll be back by 8:30. Okay, 8:27 maybe. Okay, thank you. Hello everyone, I'm back. Please let me know if you're able to hear my voice and see my screen. So we'll get started. Okay, so thanks Manoj for the confirmation. And let's get started with the second one. Okay, so first we'll learn about the basics. What are the syntax rules? How do we need to write the query? And we'll see some examples based on it as well. So why we are discussing this? Because CDS views are the main component of ABAP RESTful programming model. Not just ABAP RESTful programming model. If you want to develop applications in S4HANA, this is compulsory. Okay, so first have a look at the keywords. So should be all uppercase or lowercase, or in lowercase with uppercase initial letter. So starting with uppercase, you can go with lowercase, and mix of lower and uppercase are not allowed. Usually people will not do, but if somebody by mistake or you know, with some typos, whenever they mix lower uppercase, then they'll get a syntax error. Okay. So for example, if you see association is one of the keywords that is frequently used in keywords. CDS views, so you can write it like this. If suppose this is a keyword you want to use, you can start with uppercase and rest or small, or you can also completely do it with capital letters or completely with small letters. But where here you cannot mix like this, uppercase and lowercase, which is involved. Okay. For literals, so literals are nothing but the constants or characters that we specify within the CDS views while we are creating. Okay, so this is also we're going to see how do you do comments as well. So first we'll understand Eclipse. Okay, so suppose people who are working for the first time or not familiar with Eclipse environment, we have to understand one thing. The first thing is first, when you have the trial account, right, in your SAP Cloud Platform account, so all you have to do is when you create or the ABAP instance, whatever we have, I think we already shared the document how to create ABAP instance. Can anyone confirm? Have you guys received the document related how to create ABAP and cloud instance? Okay, that's good. Yeah, so all you have to do is add your ABAP cloud project, and you can access by service key, or you can specify your credentials here, depends on your region. Once everything is went well, once you log in, you will get this folder here in the under Project Explorer tab. Okay, so first thing is first, you need to you always make sure that you are in ABAP environment. Okay, ABAP perspective. So if you see here on the top left corner, this is highlighted ABAP, so you are in ABAP perspective. Okay, if you want to change the perspective, so if you are not in ABAP perspective, by mistake you are into Java perspective or anything, you can go here and see open perspective and select what are the perspective you would like to develop your applications. For those who are facing any troubles, please contact in the chat, in the WhatsApp group. Our team will be able to help you. Okay, so this is how you can select the perspective. So what is exactly a perspective? Okay, so when you are in ABAP perspective, so what kind of objects we develop, right? CDS views, it could be OData services, business objects, blah blah. So that kind of developing objects, you need to see only that kind of features which will enable you to create such objects, right? So those options like CDS views, favorite packages, so we'll have packages and all. You'll have different folders under each package. So according to your development, you will get different features in the Eclipse, different options in the Eclipse. When you switch to a different perspective like Java perspective, you will see different options. It's kind of a switching between development environment. Okay, so this is where you can choose. So I have chosen my ABAP perspective. This is the first and foremost thing you have to do it. And you see all these projects. So here you can also add on-premise system just by clicking on ABAP project, you get all the list of servers which are there in your logon pad as well. You can simply provide the credentials and they will show up here. So we have given on-premise system as well. So I have added both of these here. So first we create the CDS view on cloud. Okay. So in order to create, so expand your folder, and first we need to create a package for us, right? So zlocal is a package, it's kind of a master package which is given as part of the trial account. So under this we will create our package. So right click, new, ABAP package. So I'll specify like this. I can give the description, and you can see super package is zlocal. And click on next. And if there is already TR, you can use it. It's already locked. Then I'll click on finish. Then here I can see my package. Okay, so we will be interacting with this package all the time, right? This Rishi CDS Basics Feb 20, and I will add it under my favorite packages. Suppose you are working with different packages, first you better add it here and then you can work on it instead of opening every time. So I'll right click here, add my package, and I'll search for this. So I see my package which is already created, and click on OK. Now I can see the package here. Okay, so let me close this. So first thing first, we need to create our CDS view. So let's create our first CDS view. Right click, new, other ABAP repository objects. Here you can search for core and you will get all the information because core data services. If you see, there are different objects are available, right? We have access control, behavior definition, data definition, metadata extension. So under core data services, behavior definition also is included for RESTful ABAP programming. This is something you will not get in 1809. You can create this behavior definition. You can create metadata, data definition and all. So you choose data definition in order to create your CDS view. Click on next. Provide a name for it. I'll say sample CDS. Click on next and lock it under a package. Choose this, and if you want to lock it under a new request, you can select create new request. You just provide the information here, whatever the new transporter is going to create. So I'll choose the existing one here, which is already highlighted here. Click on next. So this is where you can select the templates. Okay, so whenever you are going to create different CDS views, we have root view entity, define view, view with join, association view, parameter, projection view, abstract entity. There are a lot of views that we can create. Okay, so in order to give you an idea what kind of view that you want to create, if you click on it, you will get the boilerplate kind of code, right? So you do not have to type it again and again. So because this always stays the same, just the data sources will change. Okay, so you can select define view or anything that you are going to create. Suppose you are going to create a view with association. You can select this, you will get the template directly here. You just have to replace this with what are the data source with your proper names. So I'll select for now. So define view. So this is how my view looks. The syntax will be define view, the view name, as select from where you are selecting the data, and what are the data elements you want to include. Okay, click on finish. Okay, so by default we will get this information in the editor. Okay, so if you look at the first one, so I'll discuss the annotations as on when required. First one is SQL view name. This is very important. So when you are creating any CDS view and you activate this, there will be a dictionary view that will be created in SE11. But here we cannot access that SE11 a data dictionary structure, because suppose if you want to try to open SAP GUI, so SAP GUI is not supported in project trial. Okay, this is not supported. So we have to provide a dictionary view name for that, which is going to be created in SE11. So I'll provide the name. Okay, and save it. So I'll select the data source from where I'm going to select. So I'll select from VBAK. VBAK will not be available, I guess. So what I will do is, let me try to search. Yeah, so some standard objects will not be available in cloud. Okay, so what I will do is I'll directly create in our on-premise system instead of this. That will be useful just for our basic serious use, because at this level we do not require a cloud. So what I will do is I will log into directly our on-premise system. Yeah, so there are some tables, yes, we can use. Somebody is telling S-Flight we can use. Yes, I agree. So what I would prefer is we will have a freedom in on-premise system to explore CDS views. So let's start from there itself. And let me log in. Okay. So let me quickly create one package. So I'm creating an on-premise system which you already available. Feb RESTful, next. Provide it as home, software component by default. And I'll create a new request, wrap Feb 21. Finish. So I'll add it here, add package, Feb 2021. Okay, I think it, yes, Feb 20, and I can see here. Let me remove others just to eliminate confusion. Remove from favorite package and remove others as well. So I'm going to create a separate package for each concept that I'm going to discuss, so that at the end of the course you just directly import those packages for each concept, instead of having a single package. You have to scatter through all the information. So each concept you will have a separate package. Okay, so under this I'll create my serious view, core data services, and select data definition. Click on next. Provide the name. CDS sample. Click on next. So object already locked. Next, and try to finish. Define view. Finish. So the name is already existed. I will say I will include Feb here. Click on next, and you can select our transport which is already created. So wrap Feb 21. Click on next and select define view and finish. So here I have to provide the dictionary view that is going to be created in SE11. So we can log into SE11 from here itself. We can log, we can access the SAP GUI here. Click on that icon, whatever I have shown. OK. And that will open your SAP GUI. So let's keep it here. So I'll open SE11. And if I open this, and I'll provide a dictionary view that is going to be created in SE11, okay? Because for every CDS view there will be a dictionary view existing. Say and I'll give the source as VBAK, save it, and I'll try to include some fields. So if you observe, we have to provide the key value. What are the key that you want as part of the CDS view? It's not, mandatory for you to choose only the key fields which are there in the, here in the database tables. You can choose the key fields however you want, and I'll see, but make it meaningful. I'll select some fields, save it. Okay, so as I said, for this annotation, this represents, ABAP catalog, which is related to ABAP environment annotation. So SQL name we are providing here. So as soon as first I'll check this one if it's existing display. So I do not see anything. So now I will activate this one. So there are no syntax errors. If you want to do the syntax check, you can simply do Control F2 just like how we do in your ABAP. So in order to activate, you can just click on this stick icon, match stick icon, just activate. If there are multiple objects which are you want to activate it, so you can choose this option as well, active, inactive, ABAP development objects. Okay, so syntax check, Control F2, activation, Control F3, and now let's go to S11 and see if there is a view. Okay, so this view is created in backend S11. So you can see all the fields which are here. Now, what is so this one I'll discuss when we get to joins. That is where it will be useful. You will understand. So ABAP catalog preserve key true. You might be wondering what exactly this. So preserve key. So as its name says, what are the key fields that you mentioned here that will be acted as a key fields. Okay, preserve key fields. Suppose if I have to make another field as a key here, activate. Now I go back here, and I display. I can see two different key fields. But in the actual table, those are not the key fields, right? So you're telling, so whatever the key field that I define in my CDS view, consider them as the key fields. So when you make it as a false, by default, whatever the key fields which are there in the VBAK, that will only be considered as a key field. Okay. Now if I go to my C11, so that is the purpose of preserve key. So now you can see only VBLN. Even though you specify key name as a key, you made it as a false. So you do not want to preserve the keys whatever you define. So that's the reason you do not see the key as a key here. Okay, so that is the purpose of the key. So most of the cases it will be true, and I do not want this as a key. Just for the demo I have shown. So save this and activate. The next annotation is access control authorization check. So that means it has different values. Check. So when you specify it as a check, okay, whenever somebody is trying to access this specific view, gReceive sample CDS fed, okay, if you attach an access control to it, that means you create a access control file on this. You assign a role in that. That means when you create a access control file on top of this, it's kind of an authorization that will be checked exclusively. When you execute the CDS view, that authorization check will happen in access control file. When you say no check, there will be no check happens even though if you define. Okay, so based on the values, the authorization will be happening here. When you specify not required, that means this view do not require the authorization check. So there are different options available. So that is the main purpose of this one. So label, you can specify the description of the CDS view. Okay. So if you go back to our slide, here we see keywords, so all uppercase and also. Let me just play with them. If I can specify that, so can I make it as capital Y? So mix of letters we cannot use. So automatically it is converting into the required key formats. Here it is telling syntax error. So just specify it as this. Save. Now coming to literals. So numbers are characters used in SQL as constants. If you are specifying the numeric literals, you specify them the value in full. So what exactly is mean by? Suppose if I specify, I just want to display 0.25 for each row. Okay, I specify this one as decimal field. Okay, so I should not specify this. I have to specify the value in full. So 0.25 is something you have to specify. Then only that it is valid. Okay, so one more thing. Let's go back to our previous slide. So here I told you. So this is a top-down approach that we are doing, right? So I'm creating a CDS view. So as soon as I create a CDS view, there will be HANA view which will be generated. Okay, so what is the proof for that? So what I will do is I will right click here and show SQL create statement. This is where you can see what is a generated SQL statement. So when you log into SAP HANA as a admin, or sorry, as a user, a developer user, you will see this view in your SAP HANA. So on top of for every CDS view that create, there will be a HANA view is created. If you see, this is a syntax. If you want to create a view in SAP HANA, so create or replace view, view name as select from, as select from this specific table and also the list and this information from which table VBAK. So this is kind of stuff that will happen. So it is already generated and it's sitting in SAP HANA already. So as soon as you activate this one. So this is a proof that, okay, so every time you create a CDS view, that will be deployed to HANA as a HANA view. Okay, this is one. And let's move to the next example. So go to your folder. So from here directly you can directly click on the data definition folder, new data definition you can say, instead of from here going new other repository object. Here data definition, new definition. Okay, we discussed about session variables. So I'm giving detailed document for everyone. So it's not just a copy paste. So if anything that is there already in the documentation, I modified in simple terms so that we can easily understand. So in ABAP, if you want to access the runtime information of current session, we use system variables, right? For example, what is the system variable we use to get the client information? So anyone think in the chat? What is the system variable we use to get the date, time? Date, time. I want a system variable names. Yes, time and date, site item. Yes. So in ABAP, that is a way we used to have session variables. But how about in CDS views if you want to access the system variables? So we can use these variables within the data selection of the CDS view, or rather at the where condition directly as well. So I'll create one example. Session variables example. Go on next. Choose your transport, finish. Okay, so as usual, you know the drill. You have to specify your dictionary view name, session variable. I'll specify it as shortcut SV. And what is the table that you want to select? I'll select some table which is already there. Sales details will be there, and I'm just specifying that name. So inside this, I need to select what are the session variables. I want to access some session variables along with the details. So in order to do that, you can specify here just to have a look how to access the session variables. You can specify client as current client. Save this and activate. So we are selecting from this table, but we're not selecting any information. We have given one calculated field. That means this is our own field. Okay. So I'm accessing that information, and I'm providing an alias name for that as current client. You cannot give spaces or anything. You have to give it like this directly and activate and do F8. Just look at the variable. So you can see different variables. Current client is 800. So why there are so many rows? Because there are different rows in this table. Those fields we are not selecting anything. That's the reason we do not see the remaining information. So let me select one so that you will get a clarity. I'll say created by as created by. Activate. So as soon as you end the CDS view, you can end with this semicolon. It's not mandatory. You can also do it. So what I'm expecting in future, so if you observe here, this editor, its entire space is occupied for only one CDS view. So I'm expecting a feature in that we can create multiple CDS views within the same editor, so that will be separated as a different objects when you activate. So I'm not sure they're going to implement that. That will be useful. Okay, so I'll activate this one and F8, and I can see this information for each one. So in order to access system date, so we have different variables, right? So I'll also specify here system date as system date, and also specify other variables, system language. And who logged into this system? Logged in, user details as logged in. Save it and activate. F8. And I can see all the information, current client, system date, what is the logged in language, who is the user who logged in. Okay. So this is a one example. So the third example will be on client handling. So usually in ABAP, whenever we are querying a data using OpenSQL, the client specific data is automatically handled by the current client, right? In the ABAP session when you are fetching the information. So meaning the data will be fetched from the current client only. Okay, so I'm getting a question. Can you explain me again authorization check? Okay. So authorization check is something which will enforce the security. Okay. So for example, for this CDS view, I want to attach a authorization for this one. So for that, we create an access control object. Okay. So there is another object that we need to create access control. Within that, we will assign the roles, people who can access this specific CDS view. Okay. When you create this access control, okay, and that will be a separate file. In that, you will include the roles. This is also there in our course. We will also discuss data control language, which is access control. Do not worry at this stage if you're not able to understand, but still I will go ahead and explain. Access control will have the specific roles which we define for this CDS views. Whoever responsible to access this one, they can access. There we specify the roles in access control. When you specify this check, okay, you're telling do an exclusive check for this CDS view if there is a role assigned in access control. So this will check, it will execute that authorization check. And if you do not specify it, okay, you will get some information here. Right now I did not create anything on access control for this CDS view. Still it is allowed, but it is looking for a file. So if I see here, there is a syntax check here happening. So let's go to C problems. So there are warnings. You see no access control for the sample series feb. So it will give a syntax error for me that you have mentioned in the what do you say, just a second. You have mentioned in the file that check for authorization, but you did not created any access control for that. That's the reason I'm getting syntax error. And if you say no check, try, let's say not required, okay? Activate this one. Now if I do a syntax check, okay, and I go to the problems, I do not see any warning here, right? So here itself you are telling there is no syntax check required. That's why you're not getting any syntax warning. But when you specify do the check and you do not create any access file for that, and it will give you a syntax error. You see, the problems is there. Where is the problems? So when you missed any view from here, you can open that view, Windows, show view. Let's see problems. Okay, Alt Shift Q. So you see this error. Okay, syntax warning, not the error. So it's just all it has to do with the syntax check. So when you specify this check and you do not specify any access control for this, you will get a syntax warning. If you say no check, then you do not create anything, there is no syntax warning. Hope that clarifies the question. So you will understand further. Okay, here I'll activate this one. Yeah, so this is about the session variables, and you are discussing about client handling. Yeah, so usually when you want to specify fetch the information from a select query in ABAP, you will specify exclusively where client equal to 20, right? Or else it will directly fetch the information from the current client. So let me show you an example. So all you have to do is you just need to include the annotation, client handling, just specify session variable. Automatically based on the current client it will fetch the information. Okay, session variable is the one. So when I have to execute, it will fetch from this one. So by default also it will be like this only. Just to show this, I have given this annotation here. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you what kind of annotation which are related to ABAP here. Okay, it's nothing to do with metadata, sorry, nothing to do with the user interface elements or anything, just related to ABAP environment. Okay, now let's see one final example which let's make it a little complex. So we are discussing that okay, we have to perform the calculation as much as possible at the database level only. So let me show you how we can do that with a simple example. So I'll say I use case statements. How to use case statements? So not just case, nested case as well. Go next, and finish. Okay, so provide a name, case feb, and I'll select the data source SNWD S4. I'll select some fields from this. So this is the sales order ID and created, and also I'll take some fields, billing status and delivery status, and also this status I'll take, activate. So key definition of different node key is missing. So it's giving information that So there are different keys available in SNWD, but you just specified only one, so that is fine, no problem. Activate. So when I execute this, I get this information. So sales order, and when it is created, what is the billing status and what is the delivery status. So I'll just try to modify. I just want to show the descriptions of this billing status and delivery status based on the case statement instead of just showing the key values here. So I'll take billing status in my case statement. So based on the billing status value, I would like to change the information. If it is P, then so when, you have to specify the condition here after when. So after then keyword, what kind of value you are expecting, that you have to specify here. So you are putting the value as paid for P. And when, sorry, no need to provide comma. When it is just a space, there is no value, and just keep it as a space as well. Okay. I'll take the billing status, same status value I'll take. Okay. And this one you have to end it with the statements. So I'll say end, and you have to provide the name for that one. So let me add this one. This is a billing status. Okay, save this one. So there is a syntax warning for this one. Case expression without else branch can lead to null values. So it will give you null values if you do not specify any value in the else statement. So you can keep it else here and then provide this billing status here. So if none of the conditions satisfy, just simply take the billing status only. So here you can also specify no status available, for example. Okay, so else you just take the same value. Okay, if you observe this case statement, again I'm explaining. So here, based on what field you want to evaluate the logic. Okay, so based on billing status, I want to populate the value. So when P, then you show it as a paid. When there is a space, show it as no status. If both of the conditions are not satisfying, you can just specify a pre-fall, the conditions, which free condition, which will be again the billing status, because you do not want anything. And then finally we end this one with end keyword. So we are ending this specific case. I'm providing an alias name for this entire calculated field, and I'm closing this one. So let me see how it looks. So now you can see the information. So created D, and what is the billing status for that? No status, and delivery status is still D. Okay. So what I will do, I'll try to include a nested case here. Okay. What I will do is, then let me remove this. So I'll take one more case here. Okay. Delivery status. When D, then I will say deliver. So the next one condition is when space, say then open. So this case also should have one else statement, right? Because this is a new case statement. Here I'll specify this one more else, because this else that I specified is specific to this case. Okay, this is a different one. I'll take delivery status only. Okay, and then I will end this one. Okay, so this is ended, and right now I'm showing it everything in a status here. So I'll make this as a status, common status. I'll remove delivery status. So we are including everything in a single column based on two different conditions, based on two different components, delivery status and this one. So you can see the status of that one directly here. So it's up to you. If you want to have two columns, that is also fine. Then I'll say it as F8, and you can see within this paid, delivered, open, and everything. Okay, so this is how you can use nested case. If you want to do the same thing, okay, so you are getting some sales orders, and you want to perform some calculations based on this one, like this. In ABAP, how do you do? I have to fetch the information from the this table. I need to loop over this table. For each one, I need to specify a condition for each loop and populate the information. And I have so much of calculations happening, right? So you are transferring huge amount of data, and then you are looping over it and doing. But in this case, I have done everything at the database level. Okay, and then the less amount out of whatever the amount, calculation that I've done already happens on the database itself, and minimum amount of data will be transferred to my application server. Okay, this is a simple example. Now if I look at the SQL statement for this one, you can see the HANA view here. So create or replace view, 0C case. So HANA view is also created. Now if you want to look at the same in your SAP view application also, desktop app, go to S11 and space, provide your name, CDS view name, and let me check where is the option. Menu, go to utilities. Yeah, so here also you can see create statement. See, at the database level, initially we discussed, right? So there are two things. If you're running on SAP HANA, so we have a CDS view, HANA view here. But if it is not a database, which is not a SAP HANA, so this query gets executed. You see, that's the reason I told we can develop a CDS view irrespective of the database. So this is how it will be converted into native SQL as well from ABAP application server. So that's the matter. It doesn't matter whether it's Oracle or SAP HANA. If you SAP HANA, this is a query that's get executed. If it is Oracle, this is a query that's get executed based on your CDS view. Okay, that's the reason I asked those questions. How do we do in the backend the native SQL? Okay. Okay, so that's it. And these are the things I wanted to discuss for today's session. So I know these are very basics, but I hope this will be helpful. You learned something in CDS views as well today, along with these annotations, operation check, session variables, and different syntax rules. And one more thing I wanted to highlight here. See, the naming convention that I'm following here are very, not user friendly, right? And because just we are taking a course. So usually when you are developing for real times, I will also start with naming conventions also, but just a heads up. We create different views, right? Like interface views, there are some views, right? Interface views, basic views, composite views, right? Consumption views, these kind of views we'll be creating. So we'll follow a specific naming convention. That is also very important when you're creating CDS views. Okay, please also keep that in mind. Yeah, so that's it for today's session. Let me take some questions. We have some time left. Yes, any questions related to today's topics, please go ahead. Anyone? Everyone is silent. Hope you are able to understand what. Yeah.
The CDS views you created in the HANA database, right? Just now you created the CDS views.
Yes, I created from the application server ABAP, and that will be deployed to SAP HANA as a HANA view.
Okay. So this is the ABAP perspective which you have created in CDS views.
Exactly. And if I had to create the HANA view directly, so I have to switch to perspective. So just for information I'm showing, that will be done by the HANA developers. So there will be a SAP HANA perspective. There they will create HANA views. That is a different add-on you need to add here.
Okay.
So I get one question from Karthik. Do we get exercise for practice today's class? Yes. Immediately we'll be sending the exercise based on this one.
Hi Rishi, this is Raj. The question is, like, since we created the CDS in ABAP layer, can we directly call a function module or some program here? Like one of the columns if I need to derive it.
Directly function module.
Yeah, we are in the ABAP layer, right?
Correct. So that is a bit advanced. What I will say is there are some concept called virtual elements in CDS views. Okay. So let's suppose if I make this as a virtual element with some annotation, whatever the value that I want to calculate for this one, I can write my ABAP logic. Inside that I can call the FM based on this field. This will pass it as this entire result will be passed to that particular class, and you can write your ABAP logic there. You can use the function modules. Simply, we are attaching a specific field to an ABAP logic with virtual elements.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. In that way, you can do complex calculations as well. That is under ABAP and HANA codes, so that's why you're not covering that. So as I mentioned earlier, you will get the knowledge which is required for you to explore further also. Yeah, anyone?
Hello, hi Rishi, Rahul here.
Hi.
Can we use, you created first view using VBAK and then another second view. How to use, this for second view in the first view. We can use two views in, just like nested views. The first view created from VBAK.
Correct.
And then,
yes.
Okay. So, can we use this, the another one view in this view? Is the blue. I just want to ask the two views we can.
So you can use the concept union if you want to fetch from different combinations, or you can use a join here also. We can join with other tables. You can fetch the information. You can use associations. So association joins we'll see in next class.
Okay.
How to fetch information from different tables. Yeah.
Okay.
Does virtual elements work with wrap? Asked by Lenny. Yes, it's actually a concept related to CDS views itself. It's not specific to wrap or anything. It's specific to CDS views. Yes, we can use virtual elements. Okay, if any.
Can you find all these system variables in any structure like SYST? You can see, right, all system variables like this. Is there any place you can see all the system variables?
I think these are the only variables which are available. So if I just do control space after this keyboard session, I can see only these 4 fields.
Okay. So only 4.
Yeah.
So whatever views you created in HANA perspective, the view directly created in the HANA database.
Exactly. Correct. So this is ABAP developer job, and that is a HANA developer job. If they do not have ABAP server, directly they'll create HANA views. So one more question I got. In SEAT, can we see this view? Yes, absolutely, we can. If you're able to see a dictionary view level anywhere, you can see that one. So this is a DDL source, which is there. Yeah, any other questions, please? Yeah, so this is a source code that is stored in my database also for my CDS view. So you cannot edit our views at the backend, so you always have to do it in the Eclipse only, the views which are created through CDS. Okay, I guess there are no further questions. Thank you guys. Next week we'll be checking why does it create data definition view. It has have some place, right, to store the source code. So it should be there. So that is the source for my dictionary view. That is the source it is taken. From that view only it is created. So obviously that will be there. Okay guys, so thank you so much. Hope you are able to understand whatever I'm discussing.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, Priyanka Desai here. Can you tell me how we know what annotation we need to pass? Matlab, how we aware about?
What are the annotation we need to pass?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like session variable has session variable. How we know?
Yeah, so you need to check the annotation list. So if you just click on F1, you can see the condition. This is something you'll get by experience. It's kind of reading. That is how you can see, for example, so authorization check. You can see the meaning. So what is exactly check means? Not what means. Just whatever we discussed, right? So you can get this information in the documentation. Lenny had brought an interesting point. So from 7.5 ABAP S4 2020, you do not need DD view, data dictionary views. Yes. Thanks for bringing that point, Lenny. Yes, you're right. From 7.55. Yeah. So there is one question from Anil. SNWDSO is not permitted in cloud. So cloud you cannot access that one. So we have a lot of restrictions in cloud. All we have to create our own database tables there and work on them, because not everything is available on cloud. Because of the trial version, we have very limited access. Okay, guys. I guess this is it. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next week. We'll be exploring associations and further. So association is really important. Without association, you cannot create business object. You cannot establish a relationship between different multiple objects. Okay. So I'll be signing off for today. Thank you so much. See you guys in the next week.
Thanks, Rish.
Thank you, Rish. Bye.